confidence isn't bravado. It's not swagger. Confidence is understanding the mission and knowing at least a direction in which we need to move to solve that problem. That's true leadership confidence. It's believing in what you're doing and understanding the problem and how to provide a solution.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen and creatives? Welcome back to entry 33 of the Creative Journal podcast. I'm so excited to be talking to you guys. I'm even more excited to be announcing today's guest, Mr. Drake Jimenez. Drake is the owner of Holy Hill Media in Defiance, Ohio. Opened up 2 other locations, one in Austin, Texas. And he is just a role model of mine. I reached out to Drake several months ago just because I had been following his content on social media, and he was local to me. And I think this is a big lesson for you guys. If you look up to someone and you admire what they've built, and you say, hey, I admire you, I look up to you, I want to learn the lessons, I want to learn about how you build a team, how you followed your passions, and how you made, your entrepreneurial dream come true. Like, basically, the moral of how I approach Drake, and people are, especially if they're being genuine, they really are happy to help people that are behind them in the journey. And Drake certainly helped me a lot. Editing this one back was a great experience because just getting to hear those lessons again is always one of the most fulfilling parts of being a host. And that's why I started the show, is to learn creative lessons and to be able to share them with an audience. In this episode, expect to learn Drake's story, his ethos, get a vibe for how he runs a team, his book called Hope Is Not a Strategy, and all things social media marketing. Drake has a lot of awesome stuff on the horizon, and I'm Drake fan number 1, and I'm so glad he came on the show. So if you guys are liking the show, please leave a like, a rating, or a 5-star review on whichever platform you're listening to. That does so much more than you know. 33 straight weeks of the Creative Journal. It's hard to believe, but we're gonna keep riding this thing till the brakes fall off. So and if you guys also want to see the show notes for this episode, you already know, mmgdesign.net/podcast/Drake, because that is the episode. And check out all of Drake's socials, his links to Holy Hill, and his personal social medias, so you guys can keep up to date on all the cool stuff he has going on. So without further ado, let's dive into it. Please welcome to the Creative Journal podcast, this is entry 33, Mr. Drake Jimenez.
I want to talk about you because I came across your articles on LinkedIn. That's how I found you. Okay. And you're a really good writer. And that's something that no matter what industry, and I've seen it in just from the people that I look up to no matter what industry, whether it's in marketing or creativity, people that can write a long form article, and B, just articulate the thoughts that are going on in their head in an interesting way, in a succinct way, is something that I really look up to, and I'm trying to value, or trying to work more into my career. But I want to talk about, and I got listen to your podcast, and I want to know more about you and Lexi and how you guys started Holy Hill, and it's very new, and it's very inspiring to someone my age, someone who has aspirations, and then seeing how you started, how school wasn't a big value, we didn't play a huge role educationally to where you are now, which we can definitely talk about that because I'm in the same boat there. But I want you to talk about how you got started, your story. That's what I want to hear it all.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you having me on. I love doing this kind of thing, man. And just our interaction so far have been awesome, man. I really like your work, man, and following you on LinkedIn as well. So I just want to let you know that before I get started. But yeah, man, you mentioned it. Education really didn't play a huge background role in getting to where Holy Hill is at today. I am a college dropout 2 times. I initially went for psychology and sociology. And I did get my minor in autism studies, and then I went once, dropped out, went back with good intent, and then dropped out again. But it all happens for a reason, man. The psychology information did actually lend itself to the marketing career. So I won't call it a complete waste, but no degree. So yeah, man, marketing was this gray, not really well-defined understanding that I had in high school. The marketing I knew was commercials, at the Super Bowl, the ones everybody wanted to watch. And beyond that, I had no clue what it was. But in high school, they offered a class called DECA, which is this competitive marketing class that you can apply. You can apply when you're a sophomore, you get into when you're a junior in high school. And DECA is essentially just, again, you compete. You pick a specific topic within marketing and business administration, business development, stuff like that. You get to go compete. You get to compete against people, and other high school kids across the state and then eventually the country. And so, long story short, man, my high school marketing teacher, Mr. Nadler, was the only teacher that was willing to put up with my BS. I was talkative. I was never paying attention, and I had better things to do. You know what I mean? And he kind of met me where I was at, man. I guess now looking back at it, man, I really should give him a call. Super grateful for him, man, because he took the time to just meet me where I was at. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He took a different approach to teaching. It was he made it fun, but he showed me stories, and he found out that I like to merge history with creativity and business with creativity. And he found a way to he gave me all of these business documentaries where, there was a business owner who really leveraged marketing and advertisement to scale their business, and really caught my attention. And so, between marketing and psychology in high school, the only classes I really cared for, I really didn't know what I wanted to do in college. So I kind of defaulted to psychology and autism studies. That kind of grew and developed into an interest to be a psychiatrist for adolescents with autism. I had a brother that passed away a few years ago that had autism. And so that was a goal of mine. But then I realized that because I wanted to work in the school, the system around kids with autism is just, it's kind of generalized. And I realized it's not what I was looking for. And so in that process, man, I kind of lost myself. I went to a private school initially to play baseball, lots of student loans. So not knowing what I wanted to do and realizing it's not what I wanted to do, I dropped out that initial time. And it was kind of discouraging, man. But around that time, I started getting into a lot of personal branding stuff. I don't know if you remember Periscope at all. The streaming platform. So I'd go live twice a week, man, and just kind of talk about personal development stuff. I was really into a lot of like motivational speakers and like life coaches at the time. And because I was trying to find myself, and those guys speak with confidence, and it's just easy to take to them. So I was talking about a lot of what I was learning, man. And before I knew it, there was 500, 1,000, and then 2,000 people like on average on my live stream. It was crazy.
No shit. Wow.
Yeah. So I kept doing that for a while, connected with some awesome people, got some merchandise to design. I'm 19 this time. I don't know what I'm doing, attention. I figured, these people are live, but what can I do with that attention? Had no idea that attention, no matter 10 years ago, 20 years ago, attention is a currency. I could have built that into a brand, but I didn't. And so it kind of filtered out once I completely dropped out of college, kind of stopped doing the live thing. Had a lot of people hitting me up. So I started, creating some personal content, here and there, just to kind of give them, I guess, what they were asking for, because it did feel like we had built a community over time. And so, man, fast forward. I don't want to take up all the time talking about the story, but fast forward to
you're the star here, man.
I appreciate it, brother. I appreciate it. Fast forward to 21 years old. This is a year and a half after just kind of working, making money, paying bills, and still trying to figure out what I want to do. I had gotten a few people who reached out just knowing that I was interested in marketing, and that, did the whole thing on Periscope and was creating some personal content. Reach out and just ask for some help. And so created some marketing strategies for them, did some research, I had no idea what I was doing. So did some research, figured out how to build a marketing strategy, did a little bit of consulting for them for about 3 to 6 months. It was like 2 or 3 people, one referral after the other. And then eventually had a bit of a resume. So decided to take to learning more about it and seeing if I could make a career out of it. Around that time, I'd moved in with my girlfriend then, wife now. She moved to Nashville, and so I moved with her. And I was working at a restaurant called Dick's Last Resort. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a restaurant where like they make fun of you. Essentially, they put hats in your head, like paper hats. They make fun of you. It's like this.
I think I've seen like some YouTube stars that go there and they'll post about it like on Snapchat and stuff.
Yeah. It's
with the hat. Yeah, I've seen that. That sounds familiar.
It's a riot, man. It's fun. Kind of taking me out of my comfort zone. I would definitely attribute that to one of my abilities to actually sell, get in front of people, get in front of a camera, even beyond just the Periscope stuff. It pulled me out of my comfort zone, but it was awesome. So long story short, man, as I was building that kind of that resume for consulting and social media consulting and marketing consulting, I said, I'm going to do this. And so I cold called 100 people. And I kid you not, on the 100th person, a mix between, you know, at one point it was like I was going to go after chiropractors and doctors, and I wanted to go for the big guys, and none of them took. So literally the 100th call, I got a hold of a girl in Florida who does hair extensions and nails. And I don't
obviously,
know,
right?
Obviously, right? I mean, look at these locks, right? So, yeah, man, she let me run her socials and do her marketing, man. And I grew her page pretty well. Started out with like 600 followers, and I think 2 months ended up at like 1,800, and engagement was way up. Her online sales were way up. And so with that client, I knew I had a portfolio. And so I might have fibbed a little bit in you know, the portfolio told of clients when it was really one client. But nonetheless, man, I put in my 2 weeks, man. As soon as those 2 months were up and I saw those numbers, I put in my 2 weeks at the restaurant. And the GM was like, hey, because I was covering the morning shift at the time, we don't have anybody to cover your shift right now. We don't have anybody to replace you. Give us 3 weeks and we'll replace you. Well, or 2 weeks. So gave her the 2 weeks, rightfully so. Second to last day, she asked me to extended a week. And then on my last day, and the second to last day, again, she said, our VP of brand and marketing for the entire franchise is in town. I want you to speak with her. I know you're interested in the marketing stuff. And I said, you know, I don't have a resume. I don't really have that big of a background, but I'll do it if you want me to. So I sat down with her. Her name is Dina Gamero. She did not like me. She told me that later on, but she didn't like me that first time I met her. Hat backwards, you know, greasy, ketchup on my shirt, everything, right? And she gave me a chance though, man. She had me come back the next day, cleaned up, and she had me pitch a referral program, which is more or less, we took these cards, these half-off appetizer cards, and we gave them to all local businesses. And if they put their name on it and they handed them out, they would get a kickback of $1 if it was used. And so it was part of a marketing strategy there in the Nashville store and the rest of the locations as well. But I ended up growing that list. She gave me like 5 days. I grew the list. Like, I want to say like there was 18 people on it. Ended up with like 32 or 34 people on the list. So she knew I could sell. So she gave me a shot, and she offered me either, she offered me either San Antonio or Las Vegas. And so Las Vegas, when you're trying to find yourself, isn't the best place to go to. So I chose San Antonio. Went to San Antonio as a sales and marketing manager at 23 years old for Dick's Last Resort, that branch down there. And so I was there for a while. Just wasn't what I wanted to do, man. The restaurant industry it's very interesting, man. It's fast paced. It's ruthless. That's a good word for it. It's ruthless. A lot of ruthless individuals work there too. Great people, but this wasn't for me. And so, yeah, long story short, man, I was creating content still, putting it on Facebook, but this time it was a little bit more around ministry. It's around what I was reading in the Bible, what I was learning through church. And I had somebody reach out back home in Ohio and asked me to apply to a job at a nonprofit where I would essentially teach the youth that are either incarcerated, high-risk communities, or just in public schools, a character development curriculum. And so I told them I'd be interested in it, but I wanted to be involved in some sort of marketing. And so they found a way to allow me to do that, run the socials, get involved with running some ads, doing some SEO and stuff like that. And so I made the trip. They paid to break my lease, flew me out for the interview, moved me back, everything. It was great, man. So I was there for 2 years until I decided to start Holy Hill Media. It was January. Our 4-year anniversary for Holy Hill is actually the end of this month. So around this time, 4 years ago, I put in my 30-day notice at the Ridge Project, which was a nonprofit I was working at, and decided to go full go into Holy Hill. And so early days was crazy, man. It was me running around with the camera, building websites, graphic design, doing accounts payable, our own marketing, sales, doing everything. I had a lot of help from my girlfriend, again, now wife. She was incredible, but yeah, man, one thing led to another, and we kind of grown the agency now to where we're a full service marketing agency. We're in Ohio, Wilmington, North Carolina, where I'm at now, and Austin, Texas. So we've got an awesome team, man, and super excited for what's to come in 2024.
Yeah, man, love that. A lot to unpack there, but that is, isn't it? Do you ever feel like when you like go back and tell your story, like how much more clear it is when you're having to say it in such a short time? Like when you're going through it, you can't ever connect the dots that easily, because so like maybe you're working in a restaurant, you can't see how that would ever lead you to like where you got now. Like if you like talk to yourself, if you now talk to yourself, then you probably, you wouldn't even believe it. Like, and that's how it's so hard to cultivate like the skill of being able to kind of keep the faith, like when in the moment you're not doing what you think you want to do, like where the ultimate goal is. And like this, like a couple of weeks ago, I was unloading boxes for Black Friday, and that's, I mean, and all you're thinking about in the moment is like, man, I do not want to be doing this the rest of my life. Like, what did I do wrong, to end up here? But when you kind of like you just did really well, is like when you reflect on your own story, you can kind of connect the dots and see how, even though it doesn't look like a linear path, it all ends up to the same place. So that's really cool to hear, man.
I think really quick, man. That was actually a very interesting point you just brought up. The ability to look back and kind of connect the dots and see the value retrospectively. And although it doesn't seem like a linear path, the dots do connect. You know what I mean? I think that's that's the entire gist of just, pursuing the journey, man. I feel like it's so easy, especially nowadays, man, just to get committed to this destination mindedness where we're just waiting to check off the next box. But man, the true joy, the true fulfillment comes in, finding the beauty and the joy in the journey, man. It's grueling. And I tell you what, you said, what am I doing? How did I get here? I've asked myself that plenty of times with the business growing. You know what I mean? Like the problems change, you know what I'm saying? The frustration changes, the feeling of not having a linear path, it changes and maybe even gets harder in time. But I'm glad you brought that up, man, because I think that's super important. And it is exciting to look back and kind of see how it's all developed.
Yeah. And I think it's almost different when you tell your own story, because I don't know if it's the same way for you, but like when you look at your own story, you can't ever feel like you're on the right path. Like, but when I hear you tell your story, it makes it sound like, oh yeah, obviously that's going to lead you to where you are now. But even though you have no idea like why you're going through it, it just seems like such a natural progression from you seem to get closer and closer to your ideal job. Like your first job had nothing to do with it, but you're learning people skills, you're learning how to be in front of a camera, all stuff that helps you now. And then your next job is in the same industry, but it's for doing marketing, which is, what your business does now. And then after that, you get even closer to a job that involves marketing and it has, your purpose in it as well. Yeah. And then it kind of leads to the summit, which is where you are now. And I don't think you're finished either. So I'm interested to see what we keep getting closer and closer and more precise, what the very center of the bullseye looks like. What do you think that looks like for you? I mean, you've already expanded the 3 locations, which is, and you were founded in 2020. So, in 4 years, 3 locations is pretty that's pretty nuts, dude. Like, and absolute props to you, man. Like,
thank you, brother.
When you founded this thing and you got started, what did the vision look like, and how does that compare to, how fast it's taken off now?
That's a great question. It's a lot different than what I anticipated it being. My vision then was so much more personally driven than it was for the business, Holy Hill, the brand, the team, the community we have now. It was much more just about me finding an ability to find a full-time job and doing what I love on my own accord. And that was the vision. The mission was doing so by serving small businesses well through marketing. That was simple. It was underdeveloped, but at the end of the day, I think that, it's people get so hung up on starting. You just got to start. And so, as time went on, the vision did start to develop because more people are involved now. And so to fast forward to, January, what's today? 6th, 7th?
6th, 5th.
The 6th, 5th, the 5th. Fast forward to January 5th. Yeah. Well, time flies, man. I guess not that fast. But yeah. Fast forward to January.
All that matters.
Exactly. Fast forward to January 2024, a few weeks before our 4th year anniversary, man, it's crazy to look back, but our vision's definitely changed. It went from just trying to find a full-time job that I can do what I enjoy doing with marketing and growing businesses, to a vision really now at this point to be the dominant force in the industry. Our vision is to help small, medium-sized businesses to take their rightful place as the backbone of local economies. That vision, it shifted. It kind of evolved and matured beyond just my own personal goals to now I have a passion to be able to help these businesses take their places, the rightful backbone of local economies. They care about local economies. They care about local communities. And that's come through the process of this experience this entire time, the last 4 years. And so the vision's a lot bigger now, much more aggressive, as you pointed out, from starting in 2024 and having 3 locations. But I realized, man, there's a lot of work to be done, and it's so much more than just growing the bottom line. It is impact, it's community impact. It's a story that these business owners truly have, and the blood, sweat, and tears they put into their companies, and being able to give them the right opportunities they deserve. And so I'd say it's definitely evolved, it's definitely changed, it's definitely expanded, and so we'll see what 2024 has to play.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to see, just because, like, as someone that, and I haven't been following you for long, it's just been a couple months, but after listening to all your podcasts and then just following you on LinkedIn and stuff like that, like, you seem to have kind of built an identity around, like, kind of a roll up your sleeves, help small businesses mentality. Like, that's the impression I got from you. I mean, if that's way off, then
no, you're right.
But
you're right.
I really got the impression that we're gonna partner with you guys. We're going to do your work. We're going to get to know everything about you, and that kind of that blue collar mentality of small businesses. And how would you go about kind of like retaining that as you scale and you become not so much of a small business yourself? Because I know in my enterprise, like, I do small business graphic design, website design, just creative services. And you kind of, when you're a small business yourself, when you're doing like a sole proprietor, you can kind of relate on that level with other small businesses, like on marketing expenses. And then you can kind of relate to them on the level of, a lot of stuff is expensive. And then it gets them to kind of see you as an investment, and you guys kind of work on a level playing field that way. So how do you kind of go about retaining that when you are growing so fast, and retain that, that blue collar kind of small business mindset when you have multiple locations?
Maintaining that same energy, that same focus and passion, it requires intentionality, because as a growing business, especially in the position of a founder, CEO, owner, whatever title you want to throw on me, there's a lot of responsibilities that grow, and it's really hard to make sure that you're staying focused on the mission. And so I would say the best way I could answer that is by consistently recommitting myself to the passion behind Holy Hill Media. It's not hard because my team is passionate about those things, and it's not hard because I'm still working with a lot of the same business owners even more directly now that I'm in a position where, I have a team behind me that can help, execute the services so I can work directly with these business owners. And so I would say the way that we've kind of kept that vision and stuck to the mission, despite the growth, is really just being aware of, one, where we started, and two, where we want to be. Because one, you look back and you remember the same feelings that you're helping other business owners through at this point in time. But the other thing is, man, it's literally built into our mission statement. The idea that we want to help these businesses become the backbone of their local economy. And so that, I'm glad you asked that, because that's actually why we rephrased our mission statement. We rephrased that to make sure that we stay aligned as we grow. We've seen some great growth in the past few years, and it's been amazing. It's been a blessing, man. But it does force a commitment to your mission, so you don't get off track. And so I would say intentionality is probably the best one-word answer I could give something like that.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And I've tried to incorporate that, intentionality. I'm listening to Feel Good Productivity by Ali Abdaal right now. This is a new book that just came out. And he talks about, before you do anything, alignment, like, why are you doing this? Like, because the last thing you want to do, and it's not always the worst thing, but the last thing you want to do is to, climb halfway up the ladder and then have to like realize you're on like the wrong building. And, and I think you're a very self-aware, like forward-thinking person to be able to know that even when you are growing, staying true to who you are and what got you there is something I really admire. So,
thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So what I've been trying to do with these, I need to call them interviews, but like these conversations, is I kind of try and go like zoom in, zoom out, which is like what Tim Ferriss does in his, I don't do it nearly as well, but so I kind of want to, we talked about your story, and I kind of want to zoom in and talk about, what is a day in the life look like for you, like start to finish, super tactical. I know you have 3 locations now, so I'm sure it changes every day, not every day, but like often. So what does kind of like a perfect day look like for you when you get home at the end of the day? You're like, man, I did a good day's work. What does that look like for you?
Yeah. Well, I see those as 2 questions: the perfect day and then the typical day, right? So
yeah.
The perfect day I measure, actually very specifically, with 3 metrics. Was I productive to a defined degree that I have spent a lot of time figuring out what productive really means. That all depends on goals. But I essentially define the perfect day between productivity, mission, and fulfillment. And those are the 3 things I check off. I have them on my whiteboard in my office. I check them off every day. My typical day, more practically speaking, zooming in, the job as a CEO is to make sure that we're protecting the vision of the company and making sure that we are aligned with the mission and executing that every single day. And so a lot of what I do from the beginning of the day, I guess, to get, down to the nitty gritty, the beginning of the day starts with essentially just emails. Lots of emails, man. I start my day with a lot of email response, making sure that the team is supported, making sure that our clients are responded to in the degree that I take care of that part. And then beyond the rest of the day, it's a mix between administrative work, making sure that, our books are looking good. I have 2 accountants that are great, help me with that. And then, moving on, going into the other stuff like building out marketing strategies. A lot of that's internal for me now that I have a team, working on our internal marketing, working on sales, prospecting, and then, developing a team. And so those are the main buckets that I build into, as well as some personal content production. But yeah, the day-to-day definitely varies, man. It can vary, heavy on administrative one day, it can vary to, team development heavy one day, sales heavy one day, and it can change from books to marketing to 2024 planning. So depends on the year, man. Depends on the part of the year, depends on, what we have on the plate, at that point in time. But, those are the main buckets that I'm working on every day to day. A lot of administrative, a lot of sales, and a lot of just protecting the vision and culture of our team as well. Nice.
Yeah. That sounds pretty consistent between some of the other like creative directors and business owners I talk to is that one of the biggest consistencies I see is flexibility and not so much pinning things on a specific habit or a specific schedule or routine, but the ability to kind of adapt. And Matthew Dix is this author I read. He has this book's called Someday is Today. And he has this concept of, and he's a writer, but he has this and he's a business owner too, but he has this concept of lower the threshold for you to get into work, meaning that some people they feel like they need like a perfect environment to get started in work. They need to have worked out, have like had their favorite coffee, be at their favorite desk with a latte at the perfect straw, with the sun setting at a perfect angle in the sun in the window or whatever. But to see that people like you that can just, kind of get out of bed and then go straight to the hard thing, straight into the work. I think that's a really good thing to be able to rely on, because when you need all these things that kind of to keep you going, you just become more fragile. You rely on external things, but it sounds like what's important for sure.
100%, man. Well, to that point, I think it's interesting that I've actually been talking about this with a lot of other business owners, friends, and then just other networking groups lately. It's so interesting that all over the internet, there's content around this perfect routine, and all of these mega entrepreneurs and, their morning routine and all these young entrepreneurs are trying to emulate that. But I think that's bullshit. And sorry if you're not supposed to cuss on this, but I think it's okay. Well, it's bullshit. It really is, because at the end of the day, your job as an entrepreneur, especially early on, is to get the job done. And your perfect environment is rarely going to be in place to feel great to start your day, the perfect coffee, the perfect temperature, the perfect light. None of that, man. Listen, if that's what it takes to get you going, get out of entrepreneurship, because there's too many varying elements. They change too often. You need to be nimble. And quite honestly, man, I think I'm really hoping to be able to speak on this more on my personal socials in the days to come. But I really do believe early entrepreneurs need to focus on simply productivity and consistency, because these morning routines, that all comes from people who got to a certain place and then have a team that affords them to be able to really compartmentalize their role and be very specific with what they do. So then they can get cute with their morning routine. They can get cute with their lunch breaks and what they do in the evening. But early on, man, it's a grind. It's a hustle. And you can't expect everything to be perfect. You have to be willing to move quick to get the job done, because your only job is to keep the business up running and to develop cash flow. And you can't do that if you need everything to be perfect.
Yeah, love that. And I think people know that. It's just like they may not know it, but they just don't want to hear it. I am not apart from this conversation at all. Like, I totally find myself like dissecting, the habits and routines of other people and testing different things. And I think I know when I fall into this trap, it's because I am afraid to get into the deep work, the stuff that's really going to move the needle. Because it's always easier to sit back and assess all these different things. What's the perfect routine? Am I doing things to the exact right degree, than to actually do it? Like, and to hear just that someone that scales businesses like you do, that has a team that has other responsibilities, that is growing, that you wake up and you get to work, like, and that's something that looks different, that doesn't change, and it's good to hear that, man. It's really awesome.
I appreciate that, man.
So I had a couple more things I wanted to ask. I don't want to take like too much of your time, because I actually am on my lunch break. So I had a couple. I've taken a lot of notes just from our listening to your show and everything. But what are some of the biggest misconceptions about being like the leader? Maybe something that, because like I'm trying to think like from my perspective, like a lot of people that listen are like kind of younger creative entrepreneurs, people that sole proprietors, haven't really built up like a team yet. And that's not always the goal either. Like, some people just want to run a lifestyle business. What's kind of the biggest mindset shifts or misconceptions that you had about being a leader of a team, and how have you kind of stepped into that and adapted to the role of being a leader?
Yeah, I would say the first thing that comes to my mind, man, is the misconceptions that I had early on, considering leadership specifically, um, was really down to the idea that you set the tone. And if you don't have a clear vision for your company, if you don't understand the kind of work culture you want to develop, if you don't understand where you want your business to be in 2 months, 6 months, a year, 5, 10 years from now, neither will they. And so the more clearly you understand, what you want your business to be, the vision you have for your company or whatever brand that you're building, you have to clearly define that. And to be honest with you, even if you can't word it directly, your team only knows as much as you can explain to them, and then you can show and display to them. And so, the misconception, I would say, is that people would understand and buy into something that was in the air. No, they might feel it. It might motivate them, but to be able to keep the team aligned, to be able to keep the team motivated and focused on the things that really matter, you really have to have a crystal clear, understanding of your vision and what you want for the company. I would say the other misconception that I have experienced, and I also see often, is that your team only moves as fast as you allow them to. Creating an expectation for growth and then expecting them to grow are two very different things. A culture of development is very different than an expectation. An expectation is an unsaid, desire, but a culture of it and something that's more, exemplified and communicated, that can go a long way for a team, not only for personal development individually for a team, but for the team as a whole. They move in unison when everybody's bought into the same vision, when everybody's, being fueled by the same culture, one that's established and understood. It's clear. I would say the last misconception that really comes to mind as far as leadership's concerned is that it never stops. Your team's watching you on socials. Your team watches how you handle certain situations, and I think that there's no room for people to be who they're not in any position in any industry. But there is a standard that you have to uphold that you might not feel like being who you have to be in any given day. But the fact of the matter is, it's not just about what they're seeing, it's about what they're feeling. And, when a team leader comes into the room and they're confident and they have clear takeaways, they have clear idea of what they want out of a meeting or what they want out of a project, it gives the team confidence and it gives them a point of reference to be able to, to build off of, to work off of. And without that, I think it's a lot of spinning wheels. I think it's a lot of disconnect within a team. And so I would say just the intentionality of character across the board, in the business and outside of the business, because people don't stop watching just when you clock out.
Yeah. And I think there's a certain thing to be said about leadership being separate, like from personality. I know leadership is something that you can develop, and I know that it's something, it may be easier for some people than other people, but I also know that, just getting started and not having a team around you, not being a leader, I know a lot of people kind of fall into it. Like they naturally progress in their career, whether it's through promotions or whether it's just through scaling their own business, they automatically find themselves in a leadership position. And I think sometimes people aren't ready for that and they don't know how to act, and they feel like they have to all of a sudden change their personality and act differently because they realize like, oh shit, these people actually are looking up to me, and now I have to kind of feign this confidence and, feign this idea of, knowing what I'm doing. And, oh, now I'm scared that, these people, that they don't look up to me because, first of all, I think everyone, I think from top to bottom, and I say this very kindly because I'm included in this, I think top to bottom, it's just everyone is kind of just failing forward and learning on the job. And I think there's a big misconception when it comes to leadership that these people, they do have it all together. And, having an aspect of vulnerability in there is something that I know all the leaders I look up to, but not just my superiors and, my team leaders, but people on social media, people that I follow, like you even, or, Gary Vaynerchuk, or creative leaders. Some of the people that I've interviewed, like, there's an important aspect of vulnerability too that comes with it, because I think you kind of have to balance the brute nature of being confident, which is also good to see and very important, to the ability to empathize and relate to the people that you're trying to lead.
Yeah.
Have you ever what's been your experience kind of with vulnerability and relating to the people that work for you?
Yeah, I want to backtrack just for a quick second, because I and you have mentioned this word confidence and leadership, and I want to say this: confidence isn't bravado; it's not swagger. Confidence is understanding the mission and knowing at least a direction in which we need to move to solve that problem. That's true leadership confidence. It's believing in what you're doing and understanding the problem and how to provide a solution. Confidence comes from that, not bravado, not aggression, not power, not swagger. It's truly understanding why you're there and how you can move the needle. And so I think to segue into the next part, what's been my experience with vulnerability? My experience with vulnerability is that I don't put myself in a position that I have to be overly confident, because I am committed to our mission and I'm committed to solving a problem for our clients. And sometimes you're wrong in doing that. So I don't put the stake of my leadership on being right or wrong. I put the stake of my leadership on being committed to accomplishing what we set out to accomplish and solving the problems that we've set out for our clients. And so the vulnerability though is huge. It's massive, because if your team does not see vulnerability modeled correctly, they will never be able to ask for help. They'll never be able to take criticism or feedback. And so what I do and how I guess warrant the vulnerability is I ask for my team's feedback. We do quarterly reviews, and when I review them, I also review myself. What could I be doing better? Where is a moment where you saw me, where you wish I would have done something different in leadership, or, how's my communication style? I read a ton of different things to be able to understand where I'm missing the mark too. Because once you do that and you start that conversation and you welcome that feedback, vulnerability isn't necessarily vulnerability anymore. It's just transparency. And then it becomes part of the culture. And so I would say my experience is welcoming that vulnerability and letting them know that I'm not perfect, but I am committed to finding a solution and making a better work environment and a better service for our clients. And so it helps alignment. It positions us all to kind of get on the same page, to be able to, again, be open to feedback, welcome it, and even desire it, because our built into our cultural foundation is the desire to grow and evolve. And so we can't do so without feedback, even if it doesn't feel good. So I would say it's built into the culture at this point.
Damn. Yeah. I love that. That's really good. You're really good at elaborating your words. So I really look up to that as well.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I'm trying to get better at too. And having like kind of these, and I apologize. I know I'm getting like more into, I don't want us to be like a coaching session or like
no, don't apologize, brother.
An interview, but
it's a conversation. Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Good, man. I appreciate that. I'm glad to hear that. But something I wanted to get a little bit more tactical, so you could kind of talk about, what you guys do and kind of how you serve other people to kind of use a platform to kind of transition to that. But how do you, and you kind of talked about it a little bit earlier with what you just talked about with accomplishing the goal, like knowing what the goal is and how you're going to get there. But how do you balance, and I know you know the answer to this, but it's kind of a thinker for me, at least, is when you're approaching kind of business growth and marketing, how do you balance like creativity versus like quantifiable metrics? So a lot of people, they like stuff that you see go viral is super creative, but at the same time, it's not high converting and it's not quantifiable. It doesn't lead to any business. How do you kind of implement aspects of both into like what you would offer or what you guys' service is? Because I think both are important. quantifiable metrics and creativity, but how do you index for one over the other?
That's a great question. It's funny because you're exactly right. Something can go viral and not convert. Ultimately, the way that we go about approaching creativity and how it's really intertwines to something that's quantitative, because if you can't quantify it, you can't optimize it. And if you can't optimize it, you can't grow your results. And so what we do is we really understand why creative is important in marketing. And this is centuries old information out there that you can really do research on to really understand this. But essentially, creativity inspires. Whether that's positive or negative is up to the creative and up to the what you're trying to accomplish with that piece. However, when you know what you want to accomplish with your marketing strategy, and let's be very clear, everyone is set out to either educate, to convert into a dollar, or to inspire. Now, all three of those things work together. However, creative is in alignment with all three of those things. Now, when I put a creative piece out, for example, I'm speaking on behalf of Holy Hill Media. When we put a creative piece out, we understand what it's supposed to do. If we're trying to inspire somebody or make somebody feel something, because that's really what creative is all about. When you try to do something like that and you're communicating a visual piece, a message with a visual piece, you're trying to get them to do something. It sounds manipulative. It sounds like it's manipulative, but it's really not. At the end of the day, movies, commercials, clothing, songs, podcasting, you have a goal at the end of the day. Is it to get a sign up? Is it to get somebody to review your podcast, to be a sponsor, whatever the case might be? Creative has to align with your ideal form of conversion. So if I'm going to put creative out there, it has to inspire somebody to take action on what I want at the end of the day. So creative is just a helping force, an element of marketing that helps somebody take action. That action is then quantifiable. That is the tactical aspect of marketing, figuring out what worked and what didn't work. Now, the vanity metrics like, views, likes, engagement, these things don't necessarily mean conversion. They don't necessarily mean signups. They don't necessarily mean sales, subscriptions. But those things can tell you how the content is performing and how many people are seeing it, how many people are liking it. From there, you can take that information and you can alter it. But ultimately, if it's not leading to conversion, it's not productive. I don't care how cute it is, how many views it got. If it didn't lead to your end goal of conversion, then you probably didn't build it for conversion in the first place. I think that's where a lot of creatives and a lot of marketers get things mixed up. Creative is only an asset, a vehicle to help you get to the final goal. And the final goal is conversion, whatever that looks like for you. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that's how I would delineate creative versus, the tactical aspects of marketing.
Yeah. So to me, no, that was a great answer. To me, it sounds like, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but creative is just like an accelerant in the car that leads to the quantifiable metrics. So if the creativity isn't aligned with, creating the result that you want to, then it's not being used properly. So
exactly,
I think that helps. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll also add this too, though. You need to have metrics around your creative to really get the most out of them. And what I mean by that is this: testing things, testing creative to see how it actually performs. And performance is not views, performance is conversion. How is it adding to your end goal? If you don't have a strategy to build around finding out how something's performing with creative, you're wasting your time. And this is why the average small business is wasting up to and above 30% of their marketing budget, because they do not test. They don't know how to quantify their efforts. You can't just hope. It has to be a strategy that's dialed in with metrics in place, key performance indicators that are showing you if something's working or not. Because if it's not, you need to quit it early and then pivot. That's why you need to test multiple creatives all up front, see which one works, and then put your ad dollar, for example, behind the top performing one. So surrounding it with those KPIs is also super helpful to be able to see if creative is productive or not.
Yeah, I love that, man. And I think that's a good segue into the last thing I wanted to talk about, because my lunch break is running short. But
I respect
your hope is not a strategy. That's your book, right?
Yeah, man, I'm working on that book right now. How did you even figure out? Where did you find that at? I'm impressed. Did I post it on
my
LinkedIn?
notes? No, it was on my notes, so it must have been on one of your podcasts. I think it's it's the title of episode 3, I think. episode,
Yeah,
one of the first ones. But you talked about it, and you see you're writing a book about it. So I wanted to ask you about it.
Yeah, man. Hope is not a strategy. This is a book that I've been working on for a little over a year now. So many small businesses, freelancers, so many entrepreneurs in general, man. They approach their passion with a ton of hope and very little strategy. And it's interesting because once you start comparing small to medium-sized businesses with the larger businesses, corporations, the dominant players in whatever industry you're in, you start to see that they do things differently. The bigger businesses, the winners, the heavy hitters, those are the ones who are taking things seriously. Every step is intentional. And really, at the end of the day, I think that so many small business owners, freelancers, they rely on hope versus intentionality versus consistency. And I mentioned this earlier, but this is exactly why the average small business is wasting 30% of their marketing budget, which is no small piece of change for small businesses. It's 30% of our marketing budgets. It's heinous no matter what your budget is. And so I think what it really boils down to, man, without getting too far into it, is the simple fact that when you're setting out to accomplish something, you need a strategy, and then you need some analytics, some KPIs to be able to figure out if that strategy is productive or not. And even earlier in this conversation, you mentioned the flexibility necessary to run a business or to grow a brand, and that takes margin. Being able to leave room in a strategy, leave room in your day to be able to pivot for the last minute things, for the changes you didn't expect. And so all that said, man, the book, Hope is Not a Strategy, really is a letter to small businesses and freelancers to be able to take their business model a little bit more seriously, to be able to write a strategy that's more fleshed out than their posting schedule, just their website. It's not enough if all of your marketing assets aren't working together, if your strategy for marketing isn't aligned with your strategy for the entirety of the business. You're really just hoping for the best, and that's not going to get you anywhere. Real growth comes from intentional growth strategy and being able to be intentional with what you're trying to accomplish versus just hoping that you'll make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great message, and it's a great book title. So,
thank you, man.
Yeah, I'm excited to see, keep tabs on the progress of that. And might have to have you back on, when that comes out, because it'll definitely be something I'm excited to read. So,
thank you, brother.
But yeah, man, that's all I got for you. Dude, first of all, thank you so much for your time. Like, I mean, having my first full-time job, I tell people this, makes me really appreciative of when other people can set aside like a full hour just to talk to me. So I seriously can't thank you enough. I got a lot of gratitude. But we're here in Marysville. So I'll keep you updated on the status of the content and stuff, but we want to get this out in front of as many people as possible. People hear you tell your story and talk about everything you guys are doing, because I really look up to you and your business, and I want people to learn about you. So
thank you, brother.
Yeah, where can people go find out more about you? You're a good follow on social media, I can attest to that. So where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, well, the business is holyhillmedia.com. That's our website. Our socials are holyhill.media across the board. My personal socials, obviously, Drake Jimenez on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Those are usually where I'm pretty heavy with the content. Our podcast is on Spotify and Apple Music. That podcast is the Double Click Podcast. It's all in my bio. If you follow me on Instagram or LinkedIn, you can find the podcast and our site. And so, but yeah, man, I want to say thank you to you too, brother. I appreciate it. Your interest, man. I've enjoyed your content on LinkedIn as well, man. I appreciate you, having the interest to have a conversation with me, man. It's been fun. So I really appreciate you having me on and giving me the opportunity to tell my story. Yeah,
I appreciate it, man. Like I said, I'm just a curious person, and when I find someone I look up to and want to learn from, like, that's what we do. I appreciate you a lot, man. Thank you, man.
Take care, brother.